640 million people, a combined economy the size of India's. ASEAN is an emerging market powerhouse, and within ASEAN there lies a growth giant. It's called Indonesia.
We are still behind, just like India. We are maybe the two largest economy that if we make a progress, that will make a lot of difference globally.
17,000 islands, the largest Muslim population on earth, targeting connectivity and inclusion. Indonesia is a macrocosm of what ASEAN could be without borders.
So Indonesia has to play the leadership role to make ASEAN really strong and make the ASEAN centrality a reality.
Indonesia is home to an e-commerce revolution, and its president has plans to create 100 million new jobs, forging a path to ASEAN, the next generation.
Hello, welcome to Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia, a country of 270 million people at the very forefront of ASEAN. Its economy accounts for more than a third of the bloc's GDP, and it is on track to become the world's fourth largest economy by 2050.
I think more or less on and off throughout the course of the history of ASEAN, Indonesia has played a leadership role. And as the biggest country, it does need to play what you call a neutral role so that its neighbors do not feel threatened. But I think in the forthcoming next 5-10 years, we do need to have a stronger leadership role from Indonesia to make ASEAN really strong and make the ASEAN centrality a reality.
President Jokowi has a very ambitious target on expanding financial inclusion. We have a program which consists of financial literacy, education, but also in creating digital banking, the branch of the banking or financial services through the digital economy, which is, I think it's now moving very fast in Indonesia. With that, I think technology is going to be one of the solutions, but education and inclusion, which is based on literacy, I think is going to be very critical.
Connectivity in the past always physical, but connectivity now through digital. Indonesia, I think one of the most country that advancing in using technology in the telecommunication in the digital. We capitalize those and reaching out and integrating the economy through connectivity. That's why we are accelerating our development of the payment system, fintech, e-commerce to increase the financial inclusion. And this is, I think, a lot of opportunity for Indonesia to also reach out the SME as well as the unbanked.
To understand Indonesia, you have to understand its remoteness. A vast archipelago spanning the distance from New York to Alaska, the country plans to spend $350 billion over the next 5 years building roads, bridges, and power plants to link some of its 17,000 islands.
President Joko Widodo has already made significant progress. A similar spend during his first 5-year term saw highways pop up across the country. And Jakarta's mass rapid transit system, now operational, is a symbol of that endeavor. The capital also has a new airport and low-budget airlines that are linking the major cities. ASEAN's only trillion-dollar economy has been growing at around 5% a year.
Not just about the physical connectivity, obviously, but there's a whole range of issues there, about data flows, about payments, about taxation, about privacy, about security, and about talent, I would say. If we could actually address that fourth freedom, which is movement of professional workers, if we could just focus actually on digital, that might actually help a lot, as a beginning to have a wider professional movement, and it would help ASEAN. And if ASEAN became one market in the digital and data flow sense, I think we can give China competition actually.
There are so many reforms really required for the ASEAN country to be able to design and develop deepening financial sector or financial system, then also creating an instrument which is based on their local currency. With that, you are not going to be affected mostly by the external or regional factors. So you are more or less in charge for your own economic development.
Financial inclusion is quite a key focus for the region, but financial literacy is still quite low across the region. How challenging is that? And how do you bring everybody on board?
Well, Indonesia is one of the cases in which the financial inclusion, we are still like behind, just like India. We are maybe the two largest economy that if we make a progress, that will make a lot of difference globally.
ASEAN's role in the global economy is a mathematical inevitability. We're now already a $3 trillion per year plus economy, growing at more than 5% per year. So 14 years from now, we're gonna go to being a $6 to $7 trillion per year economy out of a roughly $100 trillion per year world economy. So we're a significant chunk of the global economy now and are only going to increase our footprint 14 and 18 years from now.
And with size comes scale and influence. But ASEAN has often been criticized for being unable to empower change because of what's been called its soft consensus approach.
In the increased uncertainty that we are facing in the world, we need to be stronger as ASEAN and as ASEAN in the wider East Asia region, because I really think that's the answer to the greater uncertainty that we are facing with multilateralism. It should be able to play a role as what we call a middle power, right? Because you've got China, you've got US as the big G2 countries, the big elephants, which are when they are fighting or when they're in good friends, we will always have issues. So we need to be balancing it with Japan, with Korea, and ASEAN as a whole is a middle power.
But where do you think ASEAN will be in 10 years? What's the vision for ASEAN for you?
Well, there is a momentum if you look at the global economy. This is the only region who continue vibrant and performing well on the economic, both in terms of the policy, the prudent as well as pragmatic, as well as there is a competition which is healthy, meaning that you are in a region in which if you only grow by 5%, you are considered not performing.
The famous saying, which I believe is African in origin, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. There is a lot to be said for a large amount of consensus. But the beauty of ASEAN is that it's flexible, so there's a lot of policy space for individual countries or sub-regions to do what they think is best without having to conform to a straitjacket of an ASEAN-wide policy.
Indonesia's president has promised to create 100 million jobs to reboot the workforce with new skills for the fourth industrial revolution. This is ASEAN, the next generation. When you travel around ASEAN, you see lots of young people. The average age of its population is just 29 years old. Compare that to their leaders at 70, and you get the idea of the leadership gap.
Tom, when you take a look at Southeast Asia, at ASEAN, what excites you the most when you look into the next 10 years?
I would have to say it's the next generation of young leaders in politics, in business like e-commerce and the digital economy. There's a next generation of young political leaders, young business leaders, young leaders in the arts, media, entertainment, fashions, culinary, civil society, waiting in the wings. And that's what you're going to see across Southeast Asia, across ASEAN, 8 to 12 years from now. And as we know, 8 years, 12 years goes by in the snap of a finger.
But what will the new leaders bring? How will they shape the face of ASEAN going forward?
There will be more of a Southeast Asian identity 8 or 12 years from now versus a Indonesian identity, a Thai identity, a Filipino identity. We're going to see the emergence of a Southeast Asian or ASEAN identity.
I think young people, even though they don't really think ASEAN as the way we think about ASEAN, in a way they are already ASEANized. There's an identification of being part of a region. And I think the youth is the future of the regions. Each of us have our own national identities, but we also identify ourselves as being part of this Southeast Asia region. I think because of travel, because of connectivity with the budget airline and visas, and digital information, we are connected. You know, there's a digital connectivity that has boosted the information that young people have about each other.
President Jokowi has plans for what he says will be 100 million new jobs over the next 5 years. And while ASEAN's biggest economy has been growing fast, many young people are still finding it hard to get work. So, the focus is now shifting from traditional industries to education for the fourth industrial revolution.
With the digital technology, everybody can become an entrepreneur. Even in this case, in one of the cases like Bukalapak in Indonesia, the entrepreneur can be as young as just the primary school, which they actually have the hobby, and then they just put it online, and that's become closer to the market. The demand is there. So I think technology is going to provide more opportunity for the SME in Indonesia, as well as in ASEAN and the world, that they can have an access of market in a more efficient, cheap, and effective way. The problem maybe in this case is how you are going to understand the ecosystem of this digital economy so that everybody get the fair share. This is one of the most challenging policy discussion at this moment. Understanding the technology and digital economy in creating job, creating access, creating new opportunity.
In Indonesia, a number of programs already advancing the financial inclusion. First, we already supporting the transfer of social program of the government through electronification. Last year, we already aimed more than 15 million family. We are aiming 24 million, all of them through electronification. We also do electronification of mode of transportation, government operation. So this reach out the unbanked. That's why Indonesia financial inclusion jumped from 40% now 60%, and then we are aiming 70% of financial inclusion in Indonesia.
Of course, there's a lot of nervousness. Labor flows are always very sensitive, and it's a question of how do you deal with the unskilled labor, how do you deal with the skilled labor. Unskilled labor will continue to be sensitive, and probably that's better dealt with, and it is already being dealt with bilaterally anyway. But I think if we could focus on the skilled labor, as well as the possibility for training and education, because I think that's, if we're going to be going to the next stage of each of our countries' development, as well as the future of economic integration, I think we have to, it is timely that we address that particular component of the economic integration.
Financial inclusion and connectivity has been the big story in Indonesia, and here's why. According to the OECD, SMEs account for nearly 97% of domestic employment and 56% of total investment. Grow them, connect them, nurture them, and the economy booms. Almost 70% of Indonesian adults have mobile phones.
SME is the one who enjoy this digital economy and industrial 4.0 in terms of their ability to access market in the most efficient and cheap way. For example, we have the Gojek and GoPay, and they now connecting. At that time, they start with the 500,000, and I think maybe now close to 1 million. They are expanding to all cities in Indonesia, meaning that those merchandise as well as SME, which in the past they cannot access or closer to the market because of logistical information asymmetric, they are now actually become the player who enjoy the benefit.
In the past, we confined supporting the economy and the SME on upgrading their capacity of entrepreneurship. And we done that. In Indonesia, we do a lot of things to support the entrepreneurship, the SME. But with the digital economy and finance, the startup, I think it's ways on accelerating the SME development. There is one story in Indonesia, for example, in the past, one SME, they are selling a product in the street, but through the e-commerce, they are now already exporting.
The future is the technological revolution. What it means is that what we call the fifth freedom, the four freedoms which are already in the ASEAN economic community is a free trade in goods, services, investment, and people. The fifth freedom is data flows, right? So if ASEAN is to become a meaningful economic integration region, then we have to address data flows. The whole rationale of ASEAN has been, this is a training ground for us to connect with each other, with neighbors, as a practice before we open up more globally. So I still think that rationale is very important.
And also, very important to ASEAN are the Indonesian unicorns.
I think that we're only scraping the surface of how big Gojek could actually be, because our mission is really, our addressable market is the entire middle class spend of Southeast Asia.
Next up, the billion-dollar companies connecting ASEAN, the next generation.
Indonesia is home to Southeast Asian unicorns. Tokopedia, Traveloka, Gojek, three companies making a fortune connecting the country into a central e-commerce port. The internet and mobile phones are giving tens of millions of SMEs and hundreds of millions of people access to markets and finance.
Indonesia has more than 75 million motorcycles, so the idea to ride share on them through Jakarta's notorious traffic was good. Good enough for Gojek to now be valued at $10 billion. Gojek's influence on ASEAN is huge because it's not just ride-sharing, it's also logistics, food and fintech, and it's expanding fast.
We're already at about 30-35% of the two-wheeler market in Vietnam already, after only like 2-3 months, which is incredible. We were shocked to see the uptake so quickly. So some of it will be that, but a lot of it will also be to expanding new verticals and further increasing the penetration of our services in Indonesia, which is the largest market where we are the market leader. As you can see from our shareholders, where you've got Google, you've got Tencent, you've got JD, you've got GIC, Temasek, and a variety of other heavy hitter financial institutions, you really see, and Meituan as well, you really see the world's best at all the key verticals that we are trying to execute on in order to create this, the first in the world of a kind of super app that actually encompasses all your daily transactional needs.
Technology is going to also facilitating this integration even more. If you see the unicorn and digital economy in Asia, they are becoming one of the factors that's creating this kind of integration faster. You talk about Grab, Gojek, you talk about Traveloka. These are all is already playing at the regional level, and they become the catalytic for the ASEAN economy to integrate even further.
The saturation point of the consumers versus, say, China is still very small. There's still so much more to grow across transport, across food delivery, across payments, across logistics, across digital goods. And so I think that we're only scraping the surface of how big Gojek could actually be, because our mission is really, our addressable market is the entire middle class spend of Southeast Asia.
Happily for us, President Jokowi is also extremely attuned to the millennials, the Gen Z, the next generation in the televised presidential debates. He raised things like esports and mobile legends tournaments, right? And also e-commerce and digital economy and unicorns. I'm optimistic that the aspirations of the millennials, the Gen Z, will come much more to fruition in the hands of the next generation leadership across ASEAN.
China is ASEAN's largest trading partner and has been for the past 10 years. How it plots a course between Beijing and Washington, given the current trade difficulties, is just one of many foreign policy challenges.
The South China Sea issue pulling us apart, TPP splitting us down the middle, but somehow ASEAN has been able to be resilient and maintain its process and progress, even though in some years you could say it was slow. But I think there's always an effort to say, okay, what's the next challenge that we have?
You know, we literally sit at the crossroads of global trade. 90% of the oil and gas from the Middle East heading to the Far East passes through Indonesia, the Straits of Malacca. That's made us very open to international traffic, if you will, trade, tourism, investment. And that's also made us extremely tolerant of diversity of cultures from around the world.
If you talk about the 10 years from now, you have to see the dynamic of the ASEAN Plus. That is Japan, South Korea, or even China. In this case, we have ASEAN Plus 3. What is the dynamic of all these countries in East Asia have the influence on the acceleration of the integration, or even it could be also slower the integration, because you have the temptation to actually each country to connect with all those players rather than within the ASEAN.
I guess, a half full glass person. I'm optimistic that ASEAN will continue to be resilient and will hopefully the crisis in the global trading system and multilateralism should be a good warning sign or opportunity. Let's look at it as a positive. It's an opportunity for ASEAN to become stronger again, to become the balance, in this increasingly multipolar world, and to have a strong regional presence, to be able to have a voice in what's happening in this very uncertain multilateral as well as regional uncertainties.
What do you expect to be the biggest change we would see in ASEAN?
It's potentially unlike anything you've ever seen, because it's happening just when Industry 4.0, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and all these next generation technologies are taking off. And I think the people of Southeast Asia, of ASEAN, have proven to be uniquely gadget friendly, right? Uniquely social media friendly, arguably more so than any other region in the world.
These fishermen spend up to 3 months at sea, returning with a catch worth about $70,000. Traditional businesses like these have been the lifeblood of Indonesia, but generational change is coming, a new future. Thanks for watching ASEAN, the next generation.